Imagine this. You're talking to a guy and everything feels right. There's chemistry, long eye contact, deep conversations, and subtle touches. But something holds him back. He doesn't make the move you were expecting. You wonder, does he want me to take the first step? Is he waiting for me to act? Most women assume that if a man is interested, he'll make the first move. But what if I told you that some men, especially high-value men, use hidden signals to invite you to take the lead? And what if recognizing these signals could change everything in your dating life? Before we dive into these secret signs, make sure to subscribe to Female Red Pill, like this video, and leave a comment below. Your engagement helps us bring you deeper insights into relationships from a critical red pill perspective. And trust me, what I'm about to reveal will challenge everything you thought you knew about attraction. Now, let's get to the truth. One of the biggest myths about male attraction is that men are always the initiators, the dominant, fearless alpha male who walks up and claims what he wants. This is the image pushed by movies, books, and mainstream relationship advice. But reality is far more complex. Many men, especially intelligent, successful, and self-aware men, operate differently. These men understand social dynamics deeply. Instead of chasing, they create opportunities. Instead of forcing a connection, they test to see if a woman is truly interested. And if she doesn't respond to their subtle cues, they simply move on, assuming she isn't interested. Think about that for a moment. How many potential relationships have been lost simply because a woman was waiting for a direct approach, while the man was waiting for her signal? The truth is, high-value men rarely waste time on uncertainty. They may be interested in you, but they won't always be the ones to take the risk. Instead, they leave a trail of signals, small yet significant, to see if you're willing to step forward. One of these signals is strategic proximity. He lingers near you, not in an obvious or desperate way, but just close enough for you to notice. He positions himself within your space but avoids being intrusive. If you move away, he subtly shifts back into your orbit. It's almost subconscious, a gravitational pull, but he won't be the one to close the gap. He's waiting to see if you acknowledge his presence, if you make a move toward him, if you initiate a moment of connection. Another sign? Eye contact with a challenge. Not just the casual glance or polite interest. This is something deeper. He holds eye contact a fraction longer than necessary, just enough to create tension. And then, he looks away. This isn't shyness. It's a test. He's giving you an opening. If you meet his gaze again, if you hold it, if you send a small smile or a subtle sign of interest, then he knows. If you don't, he assumes you're not interested and moves on. These small tests happen all the time, yet most women miss them. Why? Because they're expecting something obvious. They're waiting for the grand gesture, the bold approach, the undeniable move. But high-value men don't operate like that. They communicate interest in ways that require awareness, emotional intelligence, and a bit of courage from the woman. And speaking of courage, do you have it? Because what I'm about to share next is even more revealing. The third sign is deliberate hesitation in conversation. A man who wants you to take the first step will often pause, just for a moment, after making a point, after telling a joke, or after opening a topic. He leaves space. Why? Because he's waiting. He wants to see if you'll pick up the conversation, if you'll lean in, if you'll take the verbal lead. If you do, he sees it as a sign that you're interested and engaged. If you don't, he assumes you're indifferent. This is where so many women get frustrated. They say, why doesn't he make the first move? When in reality, he already did. He just did it in a way that required you to play your part. High-value men don't chase blindly. They observe. They create space. They wait for the right woman to recognize the moment and step in. And here's where things get even more fascinating. Some men, especially those who are highly confident yet selective, use a technique I call delayed validation. Instead of immediately giving you attention, they give it to everyone else except you. They're warm, engaging, charismatic, but when it comes to you, they hold back just slightly. Not because they're uninterested, but because they're waiting to see if you will bridge the gap. This isn't playing games. It's a way of filtering out women who expect to be pursued versus women who understand mutual attraction. Now, before we go further, tell me, have you ever experienced any of these signs? Have you ever felt that a man was interested but just wouldn't make a move? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. And stay with me, because in the next part I'll reveal the most powerful and unexpected signs that a man wants you to take the first step, ones that most women completely overlook. Let's go even deeper. We've already uncovered subtle yet powerful signs that a man is waiting for you to take the first step. But now we need to talk about the ones that are even more hidden, the ones that most women completely overlook. If you're not paying attention, you might miss an incredible connection simply because you didn't recognize the signals in time. One of the strongest, yet least understood signals is mirroring your behavior. This is not just basic body language. This is something far more intentional. If a man is subtly mirroring your movements, your energy, even your way of speaking, it's a sign of deep subconscious attraction. But here's where it gets interesting. High-value men don't just mirror to build rapport, they use mirroring as a test. Imagine this. You take a sip of your drink, and a few seconds later he does the same. You lean forward slightly, and soon after, he adjusts his position to match. You slow down your speaking pace, and he unconsciously syncs with you. Now this isn't just about copying, it's about creating a sense of harmony. But here's where the test comes in. After mirroring you a few times, he will suddenly stop. He will create a break in the pattern to see if you now mirror him in return. If you do, it signals mutual attraction. If you don't, he assumes you're not interested and pulls away. Most women miss this completely. They assume he's just acting naturally, but in reality, he's giving them an opportunity to subtly show interest back. And if you don't respond, he won't waste his time pursuing further. Now let's talk about another sign that's even more fascinating, the casual mention of his availability. A man who wants you to take the first step will find ways to drop subtle hints about his current status. He might say something like, "Yeah, I've been so focused on work lately I haven't been dating much." Or, "I haven't really found someone I connect with on a deeper level." Notice the key detail here. He's giving you an opening. He's telling you indirectly that he is single and looking for something meaningful. But here's the catch. He won't say it in a desperate or needy way. It will always be casual, almost as if he's just thinking out loud. And he's watching to see how you respond. If you ignore it, he assumes you don't care. If you joke about it but don't engage, he takes that as a lack of interest. But if you respond with curiosity, if you ask about his thoughts on relationships, if you subtly share something about your own perspective, he sees it as a sign that you're open to something more. This brings us to a very misunderstood behavior, playful teasing mixed with restraint. A man who is waiting for you to take the first step will often engage in light teasing, challenging you in a fun and confident way. He might playfully question something you said, or jokingly pretend to disagree just to spark an interesting conversation. But here's the key. After a moment of playful teasing, he will pull back slightly. This is where most women get confused. He might be engaging, laughing, making you feel a spark, and then suddenly he stops. He shifts gears. He becomes a bit more reserved. Why? Because now, he's giving you a chance to close the gap. He wants to see if you will re-engage, if you will playfully challenge him back, if you will show that you're invested in the conversation. If you let the moment slip away, he takes it as a sign that you're not interested. And just like that, the opportunity is gone. Now, let's pause for a second. Have you ever been in this situation before? Have you felt like a man was teasing and engaging with you, only to suddenly act distant? Looking back now, do you think he was waiting for you to make a move? Drop a comment below and share your experience. And stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal next is one of the most powerful and unexpected ways a man signals that he wants you to take the lead, one that almost no one talks about. Now let's uncover one of the most powerful and unexpected ways a man signals that he wants you to take the lead, pulling back just enough to make you wonder. This is where things get truly fascinating. A high-value man who is interested in you, but waiting for you to take the first step, will often create a subtle sense of mystery. He engages with you. He gives you signals, but just when you expect him to escalate, he doesn't. He stops short of making a direct move. Why? Because he's testing. He's seeing if you will step forward, if you will show initiative, if you will meet him halfway. This might look like texting you, keeping the conversation engaging, but then leaving just enough silence for you to wonder if you should reach out next. Or maybe you have an incredible in-person interaction, full of chemistry and connection, but he doesn't ask for your number outright. He lets the moment linger, waiting to see if you will suggest staying in touch. Now here's the mistake most women make. They assume that if he doesn't push forward, he's not interested. But what if that's not the case? What if he's waiting to see if you value him enough to make a small effort? High-value men don't chase endlessly. They are selective. And if you don't take the opportunity to close the gap, they assume you're not interested and they move on. And this brings us to another powerful yet often misunderstood sign. He drops invitations but never fully seals the plan. Have you ever had a guy say something like, "We should grab coffee sometime," or "It'd be fun to hang out," but then he doesn't immediately set a date? Most women take this as a lack of seriousness. But what if it's actually a subtle test? Men who want mutual attraction, rather than one-sided pursuit, often leave space for the woman to signal interest back. If he casually suggests hanging out and you just smile or say, "Yeah, maybe," without engaging further, he won't push. But if you respond with enthusiasm, "That sounds great. When are you free?" he sees that as a green light. This small moment makes a huge difference. If you wait for him to do everything, he may take that as a sign that you're not really into him. But if you take a little initiative, even something as simple as confirming interest or suggesting a time, he sees you as different from other women. He sees you as someone who recognizes mutual attraction and isn't afraid to act on it. Now let's talk about one of the most counterintuitive signs, a man who talks about another woman, but watches your reaction. This might sound strange, but listen closely. A high-value man who wants to gauge your interest might casually mention another woman, not necessarily a romantic interest, but just another female figure in his life. Maybe he mentions a coworker, a friend, or even an ex. But here's the key. He's not doing this to make you jealous. He's doing it to see if you care. He's watching for subtle signs. Do you change your tone? Do you look away? Do you ask questions? Do you subtly compete for his attention, even in a small way? If you do, he sees it as confirmation that you're interested. But if you show no reaction at all, he assumes you're indifferent. Now I have a question for you. Have you ever been in a situation where a man you liked mentioned another woman, and you weren't sure if he was testing you or not? Think back. Was he watching for your reaction? Let me know in the comments. And don't go anywhere, because in the next section, we're diving into the ultimate sign that a man wants you to take the first step, one that is so subtle, yet so powerful, that if you recognize it, you will never miss an opportunity with a high-value man again. Now let's dive into the ultimate sign that a man wants you to take the first step, the way he reacts to your presence when he thinks you're not paying attention. This is one of the most overlooked but powerful indicators of attraction. Many women focus on how a man behaves when he's directly engaging with them, but the real truth is revealed in how he acts when he thinks you're not watching. Pay attention to this. Does he subtly glance at you when you're talking to someone else? Does his energy shift when you enter the room? Does he seem more animated, more aware, or even slightly nervous when you're near, even if he's not talking to you directly? High-value men, especially those who are more selective, don't always make the first move overtly. Instead, they create an atmosphere where you feel their presence, where you notice their energy, where the tension builds. But the key is they wait to see if you will acknowledge it. If you start a conversation, if you break the distance, if you show even a small sign that you're open to engaging, that's all they need. But if you stay passive, waiting for them to do everything, they will assume you're either uninterested or not emotionally aware enough to pick up on their signals. And that's the real test. Are you paying attention? Now let's talk about an unexpected behavior that often confuses women. He engages deeply, then suddenly pulls back. One moment, he's fully engaged. He's asking deep questions, he's making strong eye contact, he's showing undeniable interest. And then, suddenly, he seems a little distant, not in a rude way, but in a way that makes you wonder, did I misread his signals? Did something change? This is not an accident. This is a deliberate move used by men who want to see if you'll take initiative. He knows he's given you strong signals, so now he's waiting to see if you'll step forward to re-engage. If you don't, he assumes you either didn't notice his interest or you're not interested yourself. And that's when he will start withdrawing completely. Not out of arrogance, but because high-value men don't chase endlessly. They invest only where there is mutual effort. Now, before we wrap up, I have a challenge for you. Think about your past experiences. Have you ever lost a potential connection simply because you were waiting for the man to make all the moves? Now that you know these signs, will you start paying attention differently? Drop a comment below and tell me, Which of these signals have you noticed before, and which ones have you missed in the past? Let's talk about it. And if you found this video eye-opening, make sure to subscribe to Female Red Pill, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. And before you go, don't miss these 2 videos on the screen right now. One of them reveals the biggest mistakes women make that push high-value men away, and the other, it will completely change the way you see attraction forever. Click now and keep learning.